So now we're closing in on the totality of the things you need to understand for pre-production. There's about one chapter left, and this chapter in particular is going to cover show format and whether you want to choose interview, documentary, roundtable, and documentary would be an example like NPR. Whereas interviews, there's plenty of interview podcasts you're familiar with. Interview format may be a lot like Joe Rogan, whereas documentary style would be NPR, How I Built This. And then there's Roundtable, like The Breakfast Club, if you're familiar with sort of the hip hop scene. That's an option right there. The Breakfast Club, a lot of comedians have roundtable discussions where there's three or more, whereas opposed to now, I'm not saying that interviews can't have only. I'm not saying that interviews. Roundtable format is a lot like Breakfast Club and things of that nature, if you're familiar with the hip-hop scene. And a lot of comedians also have roundtable discussions. It's usually about politics and things of that nature, or comedy. Now, interview shows, so as far as format, can have two and more. It generally tends to be two, whereas roundtable discussion is, we're really looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 people speaking at a time. Then there's the documentary style, which is usually you go out into the field, record some audio, interview, conversation, whatever, and then you go back and in post-production you also record voiceovers of your thoughts, sort of the way a journalist would write an article, except in audio format. There are standardized formats, again, like the interview style, documentary style, and the roundtable formats. And then there are genius opportunities if you're creative enough to come up with them, like Drew Ackerman, who came up with the Sleep With Me podcast, which basically puts you to sleep. And if you haven't checked it out, it's worth checking out. I met Drew once or twice at the podcast movement convention that is put together annually. And then there are like true crime podcasts or serial episode podcasts. There was one called Serial, and it was just about American true crimes. So there are opportunities and options. And I think whichever one you decide to go with, just make sure it's your style and something that you commit to. There are some podcasts that have switched it up and they've done one episode documentary style, another interview style, another roundtable style. It's really up to you. What matters is that you develop a cadence that your audience would be comfortable with.